farewell address at a graduate level. Lincoln's Gettysburg Address at 11th grade level. Obama's State of the Union Union Address at the 8th grade level. Trump's candidacy announcement at the 4th grade level. Historians have concluded that simpler speech is actually a sign of democratization. Speakers, when speaking, address their audiences with the assumption that they are speaking to their like kind. Thus, in the case of Washington, he was talking to the educated, civic-minded landowners and voters of the time. As the voting audience expanded, presidents and presidential candidates had to appeal to attract a larger number of supporters from a more diverse demographic population with varied levels of education and experience, or more succinctly put, a process of dumbing down the presidential rhetoric. So let's examine some of these past presidential rhetoric and some of the words and phrases associated with these presidents. Washington is accredited with two enduring coinages: Mr. President and administration. Congress had to confront what to call the new leader. The titles considered were King, His Highness, Chief Magistrate of Washington and Protector of the Liberties of the Peoples of the United States. The debate ensued for weeks, with a major controversy being that they didn't want Washington or his successor to get drunk on power based on a title. So the House of Representatives reverted to the humblest title they could think of: Mr. President. Not an invented title, but one the Senate objected to as lacking grandeur in comparison to titles afforded to other countries' leaders. But rather than continue the debate, they agreed to use the title Mr. President for the time being. Since the Senate has never formally adopted Mr. President as the title for the executive of the United States, this inaction may represent the epitome of congressional delay tactic. Just a mere 230 years. But the most used and long and lasting presidential term coined by Washington is administration. When he humbly said in his farewell address, "In reviewing the incidents of my administration, I am unconscious of any intentional error." And each president's term of office since then has been referred to as that president's administration. Jefferson was the most prolific neologist, with Anglomania, excessive fondness of the English, and Anglomane, a person exhibiting the symptoms of Anglomania, and twistification, a reference to the Supreme Court and Chief Justice Marshall's interpretation of the Constitution, which Jefferson thought undermined the foundation of our government and the independent rights of the states. Of course, Jefferson is more well known for these two notable phrases: one nation and the wall of separation between church and state. In a letter to Madison, he wrote, "The politics of Europe render it indispensably necessary that we be one nation." And in a letter to the Danbury Baptists, in which he explained the First Amendment, he stated, "That amendment created a wall of separation between church and state." The separation phrase has been repeatedly used by the Supreme Court in major decisions, along with separation of powers, interstate commerce, rights of privacy, and judicial review. I hate to tell you this, but none of those terms appear in our Constitution, which James Madison, our fourth president, is credited with being the primary author. However, Madison did coin the word squatter, a person who settles on land to which he has no legal right. The seventh president, Andrew Jackson, did not contribute directly to our vocabulary. His name became a modifier par excellence, to the point that it seemed everything at the time of his presidency was a Jackson, including men, banks, gold, money, party, coats, etc. And today our $20 bill bears Jackson's portrait and is slangily referred to as a Jackson by Ray Charles in his rendition of Greenbacks. But today, Jackson's continued tenure on the $20 bill may be limited, with Harriet Tubman to be his replacement as the first woman to appear on any bill. However, in 1928, the large 20 bill was discontinued, and it was Jackson who replaced Grover Cleveland on the present-day small $20 bill. Political campaigns brought slogans that became a part of our lexicon. Tippecanoe and Tyler too. William Henry Harrison, the 9th president and the hero of the 1811 Battle of Tippecanoe, earned the nickname Tippecanoe. But serendipitously, he also gave us the word booze. He chose the campaign slogan, Log Cabin and Hard Cider Democracy. Log cabins became the poster symbol of the campaign, and hard cider followed freely at campaign rallies. A popular item was a miniature log cabin filled with nothing else but whiskey bottled by the EC Booze Distillery Company. And by the end of the campaign, the term booze became synonymous with whiskey and now all types of liquor. The 12th president, Zachary Taylor, said in his eulogy of Dolly Madison, "She will never be forgotten because she was truly our first lady for half a century." This was the first use of the term first lady in reference to the wife of the president. Not much from the next 3 presidents, but our 16th president, Abraham Lincoln, brought us 2 memorable metaphors. A house divided against itself cannot stand, which is a paraphrase from Mark 3:25. And if a house be divided against itself, that house cannot stand. Lincoln's second metaphor was from his 1864 re-election campaign. Don't swap horses in midstream. There are 2 words not commonly associated with Mr. Lincoln. The first one is Michigander, which he used dismissively to describe Lewis Cass, the Michigan Democrat running against Zachary Taylor in the 1848 presidential election. This denominator for a person from Michigan became extremely controversial in the state. If men are Michiganders, then women must be Michigese. This demeaning description could cause the state's prestige to suffer. Michiganite and Michiganian were tried. The objection to Michiganite, it sounded like something dug out of the ground. The debate for the proper denominator became zany. Some commentators even suggested Michigan people should be called Meshuggah, the Yiddish term for crazy people. The second word associated but not originated by Lincoln was sockdoggler, meaning something outstanding. Its use became infamous during the performance of An American Cousin at Ford Theater on that date, April 14, 1865. John Wilkes Booth awaited the following line and the laughter it would bring. "Well, I guess you know enough to turn you inside out, old gal, you sock-dogglizing old man trap." As the audience laughed, Booth fired his fatal shot. Some political slogans. Excuse me, I wanted to go too fast. Some political slogans associated with the next 9 presidents are notable, such as the erroneous slogan from James Blaine's presidential bid in 1884. "Mama, where's my pa?" in reference to Grover Cleveland having an illegitimate child. But after the election, Cleveland's supporters reported, "Gone to the White House, But extramarital affairs and children born out of wedlock have arisen with respect to at least 6 other presidents. We all know Jefferson, Harding, Roosevelt, Eisenhower, Kennedy, and Johnson all have had attributions of affairs or children. The commencement of the 20th century brought us a plethora of president genealogy. It started with the 26th president, Theodore Roosevelt, who had more nicknames than any other president, including Teddy, the Old Lion, wielder of the big stick, Old Rough and Ready, the Bull Moose, and he was the first president to be known popularly by his initials, TR. Since then, we've had FDR, LBJ, JFK. TR coined a number of phrases and words. He was the first to coin a phrase with deal, square deal. Then came FDR's New Deal, Truman's Fair Deal. But FDR's use of new was followed by JFK's New Frontier, Nixon's New Federalism, and George H.W. Bush's New World Order. Teddy's legacy to our political lexicon included muckraker, referring to journalists who exposed corruption. In 1906, Teddy used muckraker to accuse journalists of stirring up muck rather than applauding the advances made in business and industry. Journalists adopted the title as a badge of valor. Subsequently, Roosevelt admitted that muckrakers did do the nation a great service. Roosevelt also coined the phrase lunatic fringe to describe Cubist, Futurist, and Fauvist artists exhibiting at the 1913 New York Armory Show as being from the lunatic fringe. That term now refers to a minority group who advocates a political or social belief which is at odds with the mainstream thought prevailing at the time. Woodrow Wilson, our 28th president, a professor and president of Princeton University, was criticized for his use of slang, such as, "We must get a move on." But he put his critics in place by producing this amorphism. A man's woodage is more important than his leafage. I'll let you think about that. Wilson is also credited with the phrase Potomac fever, the affliction of being obsessed with attaining and maintaining power in Washington. I think we heard a little bit about that in the book review. Warren G. Harding, our 29th president, changed the collective name for the authors of our Constitution, from the framers of the Constitution to the founding fathers. In a speech before the sons and daughters of the Revolution, Harding said, "It is good to meet and drink at the fountains of wisdom inherited from the founding fathers of the Republic." William Safran, in his column on language, pointed out that Harding had an aptitude for alliteration, which he attributed to his coining the term, or as Sapphire wrote, "Founding fathers functioned as fulfillment of her forensic fancy." Now founding fathers has become the preferable description for the authors of the Constitution. He also coined the term White House spokesman, for meaning one who speaks for the president, but originally meant as a cover for the president, in that Harding told reporters to attribute statements read to them by the spokesman to the spokesman, and not to Harding himself. Now, White House spokesman is not only used as a cover today, but the spokesman is used to test the waters on a position the president wants to take. Harding also used the term "back to normalcy" to describe the desire to return the nation to a prior harmonious time. The term was thought to be a malaprop, which it was not, in that Harding was often accused of using normalcy and other words ineptly. But that slogan helped him win the election. As to his use of the word bloviate, used to describe Harding's speeches, he said, "It's more fun to say bloviate rather than saying orate verbosely." and thereby giving it the term its political legs. Today, presidential rhetoric has been reduced to a 144-character tweet, with adopted initialisms such as OMG, to facilitate the use of electronic communication. Electronic messages enables marketing the user as the insider to the ever-expanding social networks of Twitter and Facebook. And it is further evidence of the dumbing down of presidential rhetoric. Calvin Coolidge, the 30th president, was known as a man of few words and was bestowed with the nickname Silent Cal, and appropriately said of himself, "I've noticed that nothing I never said ever did me any harm." It has been reported that at a dinner party, a woman sitting next to President Coolidge started a conversation with him by saying she had wagered that she could get the president to say more than 3 words. President Coolidge looked at her and curtly replied, "You lose." In contrast, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, the 32nd president, brought us many phrases and words, especially acronyms, for government programs and agencies, some of which are still with us today. But 2 phrases captured his presidency from beginning to end. The only thing we have to fear is fear itself, and a day which will live in infamy. What he is remembered for such terms as fireside chat, the State of the Union. He was the first president to refer to the president's annual message to Congress as the State of the Union. In 1803, Jefferson discontinued the practice of giving that speech to Congress. It was Wilson who revived the practice in 1913. In the interim, the address was merely read into the record by a congressional clerk. Of course, FDR's vice president, Harry S. Truman, succeeded FDR as the 33rd president, and is most famously known for the phrases, "Do nothing, Congress," which may have a ring of truth today, and "the buck stops here," or "the responsibility rests with that person who holds the buck," leaving the inference that the buck refers to money. The history of this phrase begins in colonial America. Deerskins had become the preferable medium of currency over tobacco leaves. And in connection with the sale of whiskey to the Ohio Indians, it was agreed that it would be sold for the skin of $5. The term buck represented a unit of American currency. Not good news for the American deer. You might assume that passing the buck has to do with passing a skin or a unit of currency from one person to another. No, not so. The only thing these 2 terms, buck, have in common is that another part of the deer became useful. The buck's horn made a good usable knife handle, which could be used to skin another deer, and thus make a fast buck. Couldn't resist. A knife was used to mark, in fact, the dealer in a game of poker by stabbing it in front of the person who had the responsibility for dealing the cards. Thus it was passing the buck. The term referred to card dealers until a federal prison warden in Oklahoma decided that settling disputes among prisoners was his responsibility and placed a sign on his desk, the buck stops here. Truman saw the sign. He looked at him and he said, "I have to remind you, Warden, that under the Constitution, the last person who has responsibility for everything is me. I'm the president." The warden had a replica of the sign made and had it placed on Truman's desk, leading to its fame. Alvin W. Barkley, Truman's vice president, coined during the 48 election, coined the following slogan: "Give him hell, Harry." But more importantly, when asked by Emily Post for the correct way to address the vice president, he responded, "My children call me Veep." With the publication of the story, the term Veep remains in use today. Dwight David Eisenhower, the 34th president, known as Ike, coined that phrase, military-industrial complex. But trivia-obsessed golfers know that Ike was the first president to be inducted in the World Golf Hall of Fame. However, his induction is not attributable to the factoid that Ike coined the word mulligan. When in 1967, during a round of golf being covered by the press, he invoked the customary do-over rule. Those reporters who heard him say this proudly reported that Ike has coined a new word and phrase with the phrase, "I'll take a mulligan." They obviously weren't golfers. JFK, the 35th president, of course, is remembered for ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. The Peace Corps and how fun. LBJ added the Great Society. Richard Milhouse Nixon, the 37th president, coined the term silent majority in a speech on Vietnam to describe those Americans not a part of the loud, angry debate to end the war, but who were simply hoping that the nation could achieve a just and honorable peace. Nixon said it was time for the great silent majority to stand up and be counted. He brought us unwantingly the following: enemies list, prominent opponents of the administration, hyphen gate, the suffix attached to any word to denote scandal, and usually followed by an attempted cover-up. So, plaguing Nixon and others to follow: Nixon's Watergate, Carter's Billygate, Reagan and Bush's Irangate or Contragate, Clinton's Travelgate or Whitewatergate, Bush's Abugate, on Obamagate referring to Benghazi. Then there was expletive deleted. And with Gerald Ford, the 38th president, came the phrase, "our long national nightmare," characterizing the end of the Watergate era upon assuming the presidency. Jimmy Carter, unfortunately, as the 39th president, is not recognized for coining any phrase. President Ronald Reagan, the 40th president, and President George H.W. Bush, the 41st president, during the 1980 primary campaign, and then as candidates, Reagan and Bush fought over economic policy, giving us the terms Reaganomics, or supply-side economics, and voodoo economics, which Bush used pejoratively to describe Reagan economics. Bush 41 has the nickname only because his son, George Walker Bush, became the 43rd president. 41 is also known for the phrases compassionate conservatism, 1,000 points of light, and the infamous expression, read my lips, no new taxes. William Jefferson Clinton, the 42nd president, modified Carville's office sign to add emphasis to the economic debate and coined the catchphrase, "It's the economy, stupid." George W. Bush, sometimes referred to as Bush 43 or W, had the propensity to coin words. In a speech immediately after the election, he said of his critics, "They misunderestimated me." Meaning, they seriously underestimated me. About a year later, a British journalist called as neologism, one of Bush's most memorable additions to the language, and incidentally an expressive one. It may be that we rather needed a word for to underestimate by mistake. Bush then used this commentary as a basis to connect himself to Thomas Jefferson. When explaining the use of misunderestimate, he said, "Most people don't realize this, but Jefferson and I share a hobby. We both like to make up words. I tried a new word for the press corps, misunderestimate. It's not quite in Jefferson's league, but I gave it my best shot." Bush also coined the phrases axis of evil and war on terror. Our 44th President, Barack Obama, has been credited with the phrase shovel ready. Obama and the Democrats have proudly adopted Obamacare. However, that word originally coined pejoratively by the Republicans to describe the Affordable Care Act. But for those relocated Washingtonians, I don't know how many are here, who have fond memories of their first horrific Washington 12-inch snow, Obama aptly described his first encounter with such a snow as Snowmageddon. The term now has stuck and is used by local weather forecasters all the time. The presidential campaign of the 45th president may have resulted in bridge players scratching their heads with the terms Trump and no Trump, having been skewered by the neological creation of Trumpism. But neologists will have to make up their determination as to whether Trumpism is a word that describes a political movement or something else. But a political onslaught was brought by the public during the 2016 campaign with the overuse of descriptive adjectives. By way of example, I suggested amazing, disaster, huge, and very were used so often as to make those words virtually meaningless. FDR gave us many acronyms, and Twitter has given us initialisms. That is a word formed from the first letter of a series of words, such as FBI or OMG. I will conclude with a little faux etymology about one infamous four-letter word. Acronyms or initialisms are derived from facts surrounding their formation. So, when manure was being transported by a ship, it gave off methane. In addition to smelling, if stored in the lower part of the ship, the methane could build up to explosive levels. So the words store, high, in transit were stamped on the bags of manure before shipping. Eventually, the stamp was shortened to an acronym. An ingenious explanation, but it's absolutely you know what. The word is derived from a verb sittan, from the Latin verb sittan, which means the human act of you know what. In linguistics, it should be noted that with the creation of a noun from a verb, it is called appropriately morphological animation.
Thank you so much, Karl, for bringing insight and humor and reminding us that history changes and sometimes it doesn't. It stays the same. It does. Thank you so much.